Flat selected. Screen recording. App switcher. Dryad. Activate. Default. Map. PNG. Image. The museum. The museum. The clearing. The haunted house. The haunted house. Check. Next. Button. Feeling very uneasy, you follow Luna through the forest to an extremely uninviting building. Feeling very uneasy, you follow Luna through the forest to an extremely uninviting building. An old mansion made of dark wooden planks with boarded up windows and slates crumbling off the roof. There is a large garden filled with gnarled trees and shriveled shrubs and weeds. In front of it all, a rusty iron gate is blocking your way, chained shut and with a sign hanging over the gate with the words, "Keep out," scratched across it in block capitals, with a few exclamation marks thrown on the end for dramatic emphasis. You're sure this is a good idea? You ask Luna. Nope, she replies happily. Oh, look at all the birdies, Luna then declares, pointing at a collection of birds gathered on the roof of the building, black like ravens but shaped more like hawks or kestrels or some other small bird of prey. Aren't they pretty? I wonder if they'll have any nests with little chicks inside. I want to see, and without a second of hesitation, Luna flies off to pester the poor animals. Luna, you call after her, but the wisp is too distracted to hear you. Well, it seems you have no choice. Throwing caution to the wind, you climb over the cold iron gate. Once on the other side, you have to weave your way through thorns and nettles as you walk along a worn cobblestone path that leads toward the haunted house. About halfway there though, you come across a small shed with a thatched roof that looks like it's falling to pieces. Looking inside, you can make out what looks like a makeshift bed, an old wood oven and several cans and packets of assorted types of food scattered upon the floor. Looks like someone lives here, you mutter to yourself. Does it now? You hear a voice behind you and quickly turn around to see one of the most frightening looking beings you have ever laid eyes upon. Well, I'll have you know somebody does live here, girl, and you are trespassing in my house. The old man is terrifying close up, blind in one eye with deep set wrinkles all over his face, missing teeth and a long white beard that reaches to the ground. He is wearing a dark purple cape that is heavily faded and so stained and caked with dirt, it looks like it hasn't been washed in 100 years. Next, button. Backing away from the old man, you trip over one of his discarded cans and fall flat on your back. And see, now you're messing up my home, he yells in frustration, presumably talking about the assorted empty food containers that you've scattered in your fall. Everything was right in its proper place and now you've ruined it. I'll never find anything. Just then you hear the most horrifying shriek and Luna quickly flies through the door to hide in one of your pockets. Bad idea, she admits as she cowers away. Very, very bad idea. Those birds do not like people playing with their chicks. Chicks or not, you'd best keep your distance, the old man warned you. Those there are devil birds. Heralds of death they are. You see a devil bird around, it means somebody's not long for this world. So clear off, both of you, before the Grim Reaper comes calling for you. But we can't leave, you object. There's a rare mushroom somewhere in this house. I need to find it. Ah, so it's the possessed portobello you seek? The old man asks. Well, if I were you I'd give it up for a lost cause and turn back. No dried up old mushroom is worth venturing into that house. We can't go back now, you insist. I came here from the human world and I need that mushroom to get back. Ah, so it's the possessed portobello you seek? We can't go back now, you insist. I came here from the human world and I need that mushroom to get back home. If I don't find it, I might never see my friends and family again. Next, button. The old man is silent for a moment before letting out an irritated groan. Kids these days, they don't listen to nobody. Been a gardener here the best part of my life, and nothing I do seems to keep you lot out. You're a gardener? You ask, sounding quite shocked. Ah, ellipsis, you're a gardener? You ask, of course it doesn't, the old man says crossly. How else would I keep people out? Leaning forward, the old man cups a wilted rosebud in his hand, then taking a pair of shears from his pocket, he snips the bud off. Entering the shed, the man holds the shriveled old flower up to you. He then holds his other hand over the rose and it miraculously comes back to life before your very eyes. The color returns to the petals and the dead flower blooms once more. Years ago, when I was in my prime, this garden was paradise on earth. Beautiful flowers blossomed all year round, pure, clean water flowed through the fountains, well, it was a depressing story if ever you heard one. Taking a deep breath, you get back to your feet and stand your ground. Listen, I understand you're only trying to help, but I need to get back home. I'm not leaving without that mushroom. Oh dear, sighs Cornelius. I see you've made up your mind. Well, it looks like we've come to a stalemate. I won't let you in and you refuse to leave, so here's what I suggest, I will pose you a riddle. Answer true, that'll show me that you might just be smart enough to survive in that accursed house, and I'll let you by. You consider the old man's offer for a moment. I really don't like this, but I guess I don't have any choice. Deal. Very good, says old Cornelius, then here is my riddle. What does man love more than life? Fear more than death or mortal strife? Cap F. What the poor have and the rich require? And what contented men desire? Cap A. What the miser spends and the spendthrift saves? And all men carry to their graves? Solve the riddle, radio button, check. Ask, space. Eat a magic, next, vertical scroll, eat a magic bean, next, button. What is the answer, text field. Double tap to edit, use the rotor to access misspelled, text field, is editing, insertion point at end, space. Cap C. Cap V, cap N. No, cap F. D, S, A, P, O. U, Y, T. T, V. F. G, H. H, G, F, D, S, A, P, O, I, C. V, B, N. N, F. G. G, dictate, space, go. Cornelius breathes a heavy sigh. Yes, that's right kid, nothing. Well, I suppose a deal's a deal. Still, make sure you watch yourself in there, it's a very dangerous place. The house is haunted for starters, but trust me, ghosts will be the least of your worries in there. A terrible tragedy occurred in that house many years ago and it hasn't been safe since. What tragedy? You asked the wizard. He thinks about that for a moment before admitting, I can't quite remember. Must be spent too much time pruning the forget-me-so. Forget-me-so? You ask, confused. You've heard of a forget-me-not, haven't you? He asks. Well, forget-me-so are the opposite. Spend too much time around those plants, and you'll just clean forget your own name. Bane of my life, those flowers. I start off with a clear plan for the day, then I walk past them and forget everything, ellipsis. Oh, and that reminds me, I forgot to feed the monster in the well. You keep a monster in the well? You ask, not sure why anyone would think that was a good idea. Oh, what kind? Asks Luna. Is it fluffy? Can I pet it? I wouldn't touch that thing unless I wanted to lose a hand, little miss, I wouldn't touch that thing unless I wanted to lose a hand, little miss, the old man advises Luna. Still, its howls are pretty good for scaring folks off. Not it seems. Well, thanks, you say with a hint of sarcasm. Not sure how much fun someone can have exploring a haunted house. Next, button. The house is haunted? The old man asks. That's what you told me, that's what you told me, you remind him. Did I? Oh yes, feeding the monster in the well, Luna declares happily. There's a monster in the well? Asks old Cornelius. Now how, remind me to stay away from forget-me-so, you tell Luna. Okay, she declares. Ellipsis, but what if I forget? Never mind, you mumble before leaving the half-broken down shed and making your way to the haunted house. Yes, we're going in, you say nervously. Yep, squeaks Luna, sounding much more excited than you. I always wanted to meet a ghost. If we find one, can we ask it how come ghosts can float through walls, but they don't fall through the floorboards all the time? Sure, Luna, you say calmly, trying to hide how anxious you are as you approach the disturbing old building. Next, button. Finally reaching the door, you see a worn, brass knocker in the shape of a lion's head. Grabbing it, you pull with all your strength, but to no avail. It's locked, you tell Luna. Oh, ellipsis, well we should try knocking then, she says, struggling to lift the heavy knocker herself and then slamming it down against the door. Hello, the wisp calls out. Anybody in? Luna, I don't think that, ellipsis, you begin to speak, but are cut short when the door unexpectedly opens, revealing a tall, dark-haired man on the other side. Can I help you? The man asks, leaving you speechless for a second. Ah, ellipsis, sorry, I didn't think anybody lived here, you admit. I'm not sure that living is the correct term, my girl, the man says, suddenly taking his head in his hands and clean removing it from his shoulders. The man then lowers his head to hold it under his right arm. Still, the head continues to speak, even though it is completely detached from the man's body. But there are a few that reside here, whether you can call it. You are stunned to silence for a while, so Luna, who for some reason appears undaunted by the sudden removal of the man's head, takes it upon herself to answer for you. We're looking for a mushroom, she declares. Mushroom? The headless man asks. Well, I'm not sure about that, but there's a lovely mushroom soup on the stove that must be just about ready by now. Please to come in. And with that, the man opens the door wide to admit you and Luna. He then leads you through a long, dark corridor into a large kitchen, coated with dust and cobwebs, with vases of wilted flowers on the table, along with dishes of what appears to be completely rotten food. My friends, the man calls out. We have guests. Next, button. The headless man then steps to the side, and you see three other figures all sitting around the head of the table. Firstly, there is an incredibly hairy man with pointed teeth and long sharp nails, who has a habit of scratching behind his ear. Second, there is a small girl with rosy cheeks, fair hair that falls about her head and perfect ringlets and skin as pale as porcelain, making her look more like a doll than a human being. Finally, there is a tall man with a bolt in his neck and stitches all over his body. His skin tone changes wherever the stitches meet, making it look like he is crafted from parts of various other people that have been crudely sewn together. Company, cries the little doll girl with glee. Oh how marvelous, you will stay for tea, won't you? She asks. Oh yes, to stay, insists the hairy man, smiling to expose his fangs. As I'm sure you can imagine, we haven't had guests here for long, ellipsis, the man's words trail off when he is overcome by a sudden urge to lift up his head up and howl. Sorry about him, grumbles the pouch man in a very low, deep voice. Him do that sometime. So, can I offer you anything? Asks the headless man, as he walks over to the end of the table to join his friends. Something to eat, or drink perhaps? Next, button. I wouldn't get too comfortable if I were you, suddenly a new voice enters the conversation. It is a very faint and feminine voice, and you look around the room frantically, trying to figure out where the voice came from. This is all made clear though, when a ghostly visage of a beautiful young woman in a white, lace dress comes floating through the wall beside you. One of them plans to murder you, the ghost whispers in your ear. They have a blade specially sharpened for when guests like you show up. I don't think they've had red meat in a long time. That's the most preposterous thing I've ever heard. The headless man objects. Don't listen to her. No, don't listen to me, advises the ghost. Listen to them. Listen to all of them, very carefully. Your life may depend on it. Here is the problem you see, and it is for you alone to solve. As you see, there are 4 suspects in this case. Hollow the headless man, Fang the werewolf, Rosie the living doll and Frank the man-made man. One of these people is planning to murder you. The other 3 will not harm you, but that doesn't mean you can trust them. 3 people at the table are lying. Only one of them is telling the truth. Listen to what they say, and then tell me which one is the killer, the ghost tells you. The werewolf is planning to kill you, says Hollow the headless man. No, it's Frank over there that's the killer, says Fang, gesturing to the stitched-up man. I won't harm the hair on your head, I swear, says Rosie the little doll girl. That werewolf lying, says Frank. Solve the riddle, radio button. Eat, next, button. Who do you think is Hollow the head, Fang the werewolf, Rosie the doll girl, radio button. Checked, Frank, next, button. The little doll girl tilts her head to the side and gives you an innocent smile. Why surely you must be mistaken. You can't seriously believe that little old me could mean you any harm? Seeing that you're not convinced, Rosie jumps onto the table and pulls a butcher's knife from inside what remains of a turkey carcass on the table. She then charges, with wide, crazed eyes set on you. Luckily she is stopped when Frank, the man-made man, picks the doll up by the back of her collar. Why, Miss Rosie, you ought be ashamed of yourself, the gentle giant berates her. Is no nice to stab guest with knife. I put you in toy box until you learn lesson. Why, Miss Rosie, you ought be ashamed of yourself, the gentle giant berates her. Is no nice to, the little doll girl tilts her head. Why, Miss Rosie, you ought be ashamed of yourself, the gentle giant berates her. Is no nice to stab guest with knife. I put you in toy box until you learn lesson. No, not the toy box. Please, I'll be good, I swear, the doll girl cries out as Frank carries her away. The werewolf and the headless man look mildly disappointed and eventually get up to leave, presumably annoyed that you won't be on the menu tonight. Next, button. Well, now that unpleasant business is out of the way, welcome to my home, the ghost greets you and Luna. Well, now that unpleasant business is out of the way, welcome to my home, the ghost greets you and Luna. I am Charlotte, the lady of the house, and have been for, ellipsis, how many years is it now? She asks herself. You know, it's been so long, I can't quite recall. And your names are? Chloe, you introduce yourself, and the wisp is Luna. What happened to you? Luna asks tactlessly. Did that nasty doll get you too? Oh no dear, the ghost reassures you. No, my passing was altogether more painful. Now I am frozen forever in what was to be my wedding dress. For hours I stood there at the altar, waiting for my love to come. I stood there when the guests started to grow frustrated and leave. I stood there long after the priest was gone. I stood there even when the flowers in my bouquet started to wilt in my hands. There I stood waiting, day after day, until I finally died of a broken heart. Even now, I am waiting. I shall remain here in this house until finally my true love returns to me. I'm sorry, you tell the ghost bride. That's a really sad story. It is, she agrees, but there is no reason that your story should also be a sad one. No need to tell me your tale, child, I already know. You're here for the mushroom, aren't you? The possessed portobello. Well, you are not the first to come in search of it, but I do hope you are the last. I'm afraid things did not fare so well for the others. Oh dear, you mutter to yourself. Don't suppose there's any advice you can give me? Don't die, the ghost bride advises. That aside, keep your wits about you. It takes a sharp mind to escape from this house in one piece. In fact, I'd like to test that mind if I may, see how bright you are before I allow you to venture further. Okay, go ahead, you tell Charlotte. Very well, then here is my riddle to you. What has 4 fingers and a thumb, but no flesh? Solve the riddle, radio button, checked, 1 of 3. Eaten, next, button. What is the answer? Text field. Double tap to add, text field. Insertion point at end, text field, is editing, cap G. Golf, cap G, C. X, Z, shift, L. L, G. F, D, S, A, P, O. O, C. V. V, G. F, D, S, A, P, O, I, U, Y, T, R, E. E, space, go. Yes, very good, Charlotte says with a smile. Perhaps you're bright enough to survive. How do we get to the other side? Luna asks herself. I don't see a door anywhere, just a dusty old bookshelf. Oh, look, Handsome and the Hag, she says, gesturing to one of the books. This was my favorite book when I was just a wisp of a wisp. I want to read it. Unfortunately, this book is not quite what it seems. When Luna pulls it from the shelf, this opens a trapdoor beneath you that sends you sliding and screaming to the floor below. Oh, you grumble when you finally hit the bottom. Please be careful what you touch in here, Luna. You yell up to, I think that's the point, Luna, you tell her before slowly exploring the room. As the wisp flutters around, I think that's the point, Luna, you, next, button. Well, what else are you supposed to drink when you hide out in a wine cellar? You hear a voice say, and turning around you see a pair of eyes appear from the darkness, causing you to stumble backwards and shout, 2 true dicer. Another voice comes from the 2 figures move forward and it becomes clear before you can object, sharp, Svartalfer? Before the 2 figures move forward and it becomes clear why you couldn't see them in the darkness. Svartalfer? You repeat, struggling to pronounce the word. Svartalfer? You repeat, struggling to pronounce the word. Dark-hearted beast from ancient mythology, Charlotte. Dark-hearted beast from ancient mythology, Charlotte explains. In her language I believe it literally translates to, black elves. Turning to the 2 brothers, the ghost now addresses them instead of you. Slicer, dicer, ellipsis, playing nicely I assume. Dark-hearted beast from ancient mythology, Charlotte explains. In your language, I believe it literally translates to black elves. Turning to the two brothers, the ghost now addresses them instead of you. Slicer, dicer, ellipsis, playing nicely, I assume. Oh, of course, ma'am, insists Slicer, dark-hearted beast from ancient mythology. Charlotte explains. In your language, I believe it literally translates to black elves. Turning to the two brothers, the ghost now addresses them instead of you. Slicer, dicer, ellipsis, playing nicely, I assume. Oh, of course, ma'am, insists Slicer. Don't we always? Asks Dicer. Very good, groans Charlotte, not sounding convinced. She then turns to direct her attention back to you. These two are the most infamous assassins our realm has ever seen. They hide out here between jobs, since even if somebody figured out they were here, nobody in their right mind would ever risk entering this house. Except this little brat, one of the brothers says, clapping his hand on your shoulder. What say we have some fun with her before we send the girl on her merry way? Oh, very well, Charlotte says, irritably folding her arms, but do make it quick. Next, button. With wicked grins spread across their faces, the two brothers crouch down so that their eyes are level with yours. Now, listen up, sunshine, one of the brothers says. I've got a little poser for you. If you get it right, we let you go without a scratch. And if I get it wrong? Well, we'll just have to wait and see, won't we? Says the other brother. Now hush up and listen. Last week, me and my brother Slicer here were hired to assassinate 10 men, says Dicer. Those men were all spread out over the realm, you see, so we decided to split up and kill half each, says Slicer. Now me, Dicer that is, it took me exactly 2 days to find each victim, says Dicer. Whereas me, Slicer, it took me. Now, solve the riddle. Ask Luna for. Eat a magic. Next, button. What is the answer? Text field. Double tap insertion point at end. Insertion point at end. Space. Dictate. Emote. Numbers. Right paren. Left semicolon. Slash hyphen 0 9 8 7 6 5 5 6 7 8 9 0 0 0 space. Go. The Svartail brothers both roll their eyes, looking quite disappointed. Yes, that's right, Dicer says reluctantly. Doesn't matter how long it took us to find our victims, adds Slicer. If we both agreed to kill half each, we'll both end up with 500 gold, 100 for each kill. A nice try, boys, Charlotte tells the brothers, but the girl won fair and square. Now, if you'll excuse us, the ghost bids the brothers farewell as she drifts through the air, her candle illuminating the large, spiral staircase leading upward. Are you coming, Chloe? She asks. Or would you prefer to keep the brothers company a while longer? Coming, you call quickly after her, running to catch up with the ghost as she begins to drift up the stairs. Thanks for getting me out of that, you tell Charlotte. I thought I was dead for sure. Oh, don't worry about those boys, they're harmless really, the ghost attempts to reassure you. Unless of course you have a price on your head. I don't suppose you've upset any members of the Unicorn Mafia, not that I know of, you tell her. Very good, she says as she guides you further up the stairs. Now be careful, we have bats upstairs. You don't want to. Looking up, you can see that she's right. Several bats are hanging upside down from the rafters. It's okay, I'll be quiet, you assure her. Bats? Where? Squeaks Luna. You point. Next, button. Hearing this, one of the bat's eyes shoot open and you're sure you can see an almost human mile curving its animal lips. Releasing its grip and spreading its wings, the bat starts to float down and suddenly begins to transform, its wings becoming a long, black, vet is this appetizing smell in the air? The vampire asks, you can stop drooling, Vlad, the girl's not for eating, Charlotte scolds him. Now if you'll excuse us, I'm taking Chloe here to the mushroom. Is he possessed Portobello? Vlad asks. Vay, that frightening fungus has been in your family for generations. You really think this human deserves such a precious heirloom? That's for me to decide, the ghost says firmly. Now, go get some rest while the sun's still up. Oh, you Volmen have such soft, weeping hearts, but I am not so easily swayed, Vlad says as he steps out in front of you, leaning forward so that his eyes are level with yours. Now, you're going to ask me a riddle, aren't you? You ask, well, aren't you Zebright Von? The vampire says sarcastically, I am not alive, yet I grow. I have no lungs, yet I need air. I have no mouth, yet I can drown. That am I? Solve the riddle, radio button, checked, 1 of 3. Check, ask, eat a next, button. What is the answer? Text field. Double tap to edit, use the rotor, text field. Next, button, text field. Double tap to edit, insertion point at end. Yay. Cap H. Hotel, cap G, cap F. Cap F, fire. Fire. Space, space, go. The vampire shrugs his shoulders and takes a step to the side, extending his arm to usher you past. Well done, my friend, I have been. Good work, Chloe, Charlotte tells you. Come along now, no time. Good work, Chloe, Charlotte tells you. Come along now, no time to waste, ellipsis. Well, not for you anyway. I have nothing but time, she says as she guides you down a long, eerie passageway. I honestly cannot tell you how many years I've been dead, but good work, Chloe, Charlotte tells you. Come along now, no time to waste, ellipsis. Well, not for you anyway. I have nothing but time, she says as she guides you down a long, eerie passageway. I honestly cannot tell you how many years I've been dead, but I do remember how important time seemed when I was living. Allow just a little time to pass you by and you simply fade away, like this man here. The ghost then lifts a finger and gestures inside a small room with, good work, Chloe, Charlotte tells you. Approach the door and fiddle with the doorknob but to no avail. Oh yeah, Luna mutters as she flies back to your side. We should probably find a key, ellipsis. Oh look, there's one, Luna declares with a huge smile on her face. Next, button. You are not so happy though, when you see where the wisp is pointing. The key is in the hand of the skeleton behind the bars. Taking a deep breath to steel your nerves, you drop to your knees and attempt to pry the key from the corpse's undead hand. You are instantly stopped though, when the skeleton's head suddenly jerks upward to look you directly in the eye. The hand holding the key claps shut and the other hand takes a firm grip of your arm. You are not so happy though, when you see where the wisp. What are you doing? The skeleton snaps. Trying to steal my. You are not so happy though, when you see where the wisp is pointing. The key is in the hand of the skeleton behind the bars. Taking a deep breath to steel your nerves, you drop to your knees and attempt to pry the key from the corpse's undead hand. You are instantly stopped though, when the skeleton's head suddenly jerks upward to look you directly in the eye. The hand holding the key claps shut and the other hand takes a firm grip of your arm. What are you doing? The skeleton snaps. Trying to steal my key, are you? Dirty, rotten thief. The key's mine, I tell you, mine. You are not so happy though, when you see where the wisp is pointing. The key is in the hand of the skeleton behind the bars. Taking a deep breath to steel your nerves, you drop to your knees and attempt to pry the key from the corpse's undead hand. You are instantly stopped though, when the skeleton's head suddenly jerks upward to look you directly in the eye. The hand holding the key claps shut and the other hand takes a firm grip of your arm. What are you doing? The skeleton snaps. Trying to steal my key. Oh good, you're awake. Luna chirps happily, the reanimation of a corpse not being nearly disturbing enough to rob her of her sunny disposition. Excuse me sir, I don't suppose we could borrow that key for a moment, could we? You are shocked to silence for a few seconds, but after you regain your courage, you are shocked to silence for a few seconds, but after you regain your courage, you point out, but how can you escape now? I'm not sure if you've noticed, but ellipsis, you're not exactly in one piece anymore. That's not the point. The skeleton insists. I answered five. That's not the point. Well, I've answered riddles too. You insist. That's not the point. The skeleton insists. I answered 5 riddles to get to this key. I earned it. It belongs to me. That's not the point. That's not the point. The skeleton insists. I answered 5 riddles to get to this key. I earned it. It belongs to me. Well, I've answered riddles too. You insist. Next, button. The skeleton is silent for a moment as he considers your argument. Eventually he releases his grip on your The skeleton is silent for a moment as he considers your argument. Eventually he releases his grip on your arm and takes hold of the iron bars once more. Well, I suppose you did make it this far. Very well, girl, I'll tell you what, there's a riddle carved into the wall of this room. If I could have solved it, the iron bars would have been lifted and I'd have been free to carry on my quest, but even after all these years trapped in this cell, poor old Bones could never solve the blasted thing. Bones? You ask, yeah, what of it? Bones asks. The skeleton is silent. Bones? You ask, raising an eyebrow. The skeleton is silent for, Bones? Yeah, what of it? Bones asks. The skeleton is silent for a moment as he considers your argument. Eventually he releases his grip on your arm and takes hold of the iron bars once more. Well, I suppose you did make it this far. Very well, girl, I'll tell you what, there's a riddle carved into the wall of this room. If I could have solved it, the iron bars would have been lifted and I'd have been free to carry on my quest, but even after all these years trapped in this cell, poor old Bones could never solve the blasted thing.